I am really excited to share my picks for 21 books for the year 2021. I bet that you are excited for new reads and a new year. So without further ado, here are my picks. My first pick is called The Rose Code by Quinn. She was the author of the Alice Network, and wow, I absolutely love the Alice Network, and I know that I'm gonna love The Rose Code. This one is promised to be a sure book club favorite, and oh my god, I really just can't wait to read this because historical fiction tends to be a little bit slower, but this one promises not to be one of those. So picture this: 1940, World War II, 3 girls. The first one, her name is Asla. She is a debutante who wants to be known for more than her wealth. And then you have Mab, which is quite the opposite. She is she's poor, and she wants to have a socially advantageous husband. And then you have Beth, which is a shy girl with a big brain. How are all these related? They have one thing in common: they all work to crack German codes. And then it's because it is a dual storyline. It takes us back to 1947, where all 3 girls have now had a falling out. It did not end well, and one of them actually ends up in an asylum and is about to have a lobotomy, and they need to crack one more code in order to save that young lady. This one, I bet it's going to be super exciting. I myself really can't wait to read this one. So hopefully you'll pick this one up too. The Rose Code. My next one is called The Sunflower Sister by Martha Hall Kelly. If you loved Lilac Girls and Lost Roses, I think that you're in for a treat because Martha Hall Kelly's new book is just going to be fantastic as well. This is a story that takes place during the Civil War with 3 characters as well. I guess there's a little theme here. The first one is Georgie Moulsey, which is a privileged girl that she chases after her passion of being a nurse. And what is so special about being that? Well, in that time period, that profession was dominated by males. And she was just that type of character, a very strong woman who said, you know what, I'm going to follow my passion. And in that time, not only was that profession dominated by males, but it was considered a bother for a woman to be in that profession. So she goes to do it anyway. And then the second character comes into play is Gemma. She's a young slave living in very abusive conditions. And then the third is Anne May, which is a wife left behind to run a plantation after her husband enlists in the Union Army. And get this, also her cherished brother enlists, but in the opposite, for the Confederate Union. So this book promises to be very exciting. I love that it's inspired by true accounts, and it's going to give a lot of detail in war-torn New York City, which that's where I'm from. So that's really exciting for me. And also the accounts of the abuse that some slaves went through, and as always, you know, really the hardship of being in a battlefield. So I think we will not be disappointed by The Sunflower Sisters. My next book is called Eternal by Lisa Scottoline. Now, for those of you who are fans of Lisa Scottoline work, know that she usually writes about legal thrillers, but she has shaken up the bag this time and has now stepped into historical fiction. And Eternal takes place in the stage of World War II. My, I've picked a lot of interesting times here. I guess all my picks are mostly historical fiction. But it takes place in World War II, but in Italy, in the world of 3 young adults and how their life is dramatically altered when fascist party comes into play. And so we're all used to, especially if you're a fan of historical fiction, of World War II stories, but this one is a little bit different because she will tell us more about the plight of the Italian Jews, and it's something that's not always written about during World War II. And we also want to know what happens to these 3 young adults, and I think there's a little love triangle there, so very interesting. You gotta let me know how you like that one, being that she changes it up a little bit. And my last pick, I am so excited. This is a debut novel. It's called A Woman in Salt by Gabriela Garcia. And wow, have you ever sat down and said to yourself, how would my life be different if my mother made different choices? And then take it a step further, like, are my choices, how are my choices turning the wheel for my family, right? I don't know about you, but I often think of these things. I do have little ones at home. And so this book is super fascinating because it's a powerful story of 5 generations of Cuban and Cuban American women, and the challenges that each one of them face. And it has like a huge array of things, whether it's addiction or abuse and or political turmoil, which is, you know, that's where it gets a little bit exciting, a little bit more relevant for today as well. And it's a story of immigration and relationships between mothers and daughters, and I always love those stories. And the choices that women make that can haunt them for a lifetime, which is always very interesting to read. I believe that we will all be thinking about this story long after we read it, and I'm excited, and I hope you are too. I hope that you enjoy all of our book talks today, and we can't wait to see you and pick some up. Let us know how you like them.
So today I'm going to talk about 3 different mystery thrillers that are going to come out in the next year. 2 of them are coming out in the summer, and the first one is Survive the Night by Riley Sager. You've probably read a couple of their other books. I think this is their 5th book that they have coming out. This one is set in 1991, and it follows a college student, Charlie Baxter. She is looking for a ride home to Ohio, and so she's looking on like her college like rideshare board, like one of those, if you went to college in the 90s or grew up in the 90s, they used to like post like, you know, looking for a ride on like an actual like bulletin board. And so she finds a ride with Josh, and he is also going home to Ohio. He says he's going home to take care of his sick father. And Charlie's just trying to get away from campus because her best friend was killed by the campus killer. And so, yeah, Charlie's super suspicious of Josh. Like, she agrees to this ride with Josh, and then she's like, oh my God, what if he's the killer? And so, you know, he won't let her look in the trunk. His story is like full of holes, like about going home to take care of his father. And so all she has to do is survive the ride, which is, you know, the title.
So sketchy.
And, you know, is he really a killer, or is she just overly suspicious? Is it because she watches a lot of movies? You'll have to find out by reading the book. And that comes out probably July 6th, 2021. Would you like to do your?
Yeah. Oh, sure. So mine is a historical fiction. It's by Kristin Hanna, The Four Winds. And it takes place in Texas in 1934. And it's right at the, kind of in the middle of the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl. And so a lot of people are out of work, and the land is basically eating itself. And a lot of farmers are losing their land. And this is about Elsa Martinelli, who is one of those landowners, and she has to make the choice to either stay in Texas and keep her land or make the move west to California like a lot of people were doing at that time. So it's a really great story.
Yeah, everybody loves Kristin Hanna. So my next book is Dark Roads by Chevy Stevens. This one comes out in August. This is by the author of Still Missing. You might have read that one. So this one focuses on the Cold Creek Highway, a place where hitchhikers vanish all the time, where women's cars break down and then they're never seen again. And so one woman uses this to her advantage. She's like, I'm trying to get away from like an uncomfortable living situation and an unbearable living situation. So she hopes that people will think that she was a victim of like the serial killer. And so she just disappears. And then a year later, Beth Chevalier arrives in Cold Creek to attend a memorial for the victims of this highway. Her sister was killed there a year earlier in the summer. And so now she's there to try to kind of figure out what happened. She gets a job where her sister used to work, and she's trying to make friends with people that her sister knew. And so as she gets closer to uncovering the truth behind like her sister's death, she finds out that there's a lot of people lying in Cold Creek. Dramatic, a thriller. You should check it out. And then my last book is The Life Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins. So this is a twist on the classic novel Jane Eyre. But this one is set in modern times. And this Jane is a broke dog walker in Thornfield Estates, which is like a richy rich gated community with McMansions and, fancy houses, big cars, She's a dog walker, so she walks all their dogs. But she also is a little bit of like a kleptomaniac. So like when she goes into their houses, she steals like little tchotchkes and jewelry off their side tables. Like, I was like, oh, okay, great. And so, she's living her broke thief life. And then along comes Eddie Rochester, who is recently widowed and is one of like the most mysterious and eligible bachelors in Thornfield Estates. And she's like, oh my God, he would be perfect. Like not only is he dark, handsome, and brooding, but he also would be the kind of protection that she's looking for. But his deceased wife is like the image of like, just like Southern charm. She was a rags to riches story. She's beautiful and ambitious, and she started like a Southern like lifestyle guru website thing, and she was super successful. And so Jane doesn't know if she can live up to that. And it's all about, which Mrs. Rochester is going to get their happy ending. Is the wife really dead? Is Jane just a crazy pants? Who knows? You can find out by reading that one, and that one actually comes out January 5th. So that one you should check out very soon.
Whereabouts by Jhumpa Lahiri. This is probably the book I'm most excited about for 2021. She's one of my favorite writers. Her writing is exquisite and the depth of her characters is amazing. Her most recent novel, The Lowland, which was maybe 10 years ago, was a family saga that started during a revolution in India and then followed its characters when they immigrated to the US. This one, Lahiri wrote in Italian, which she recently learned because she now lives in Italy, and she translated herself into English. And it's her first fiction in a very long time. So it's excellent, and while you're waiting for it to come out, you can check out her other stuff if you haven't read it yet. So that is Whereabouts by Jhumpa Lahiri. The next one I'm excited about for this year is The Heart Principle by Helen Huang. This is the third in a loosely connected series, but you don't have to read them all. These are kind of light rom-com books. They're also kind of steamy. The other ones are The Kiss Quotient and The Bride Test. They both, and also this one, follow the story and like love interest of a character who is on the autism spectrum and the various challenges of love life when you have autism. They're written by a woman who is also on the spectrum, and they are smart and funny and really just page turners. So The Heart Principle by Helen Huang. Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead, who is a novelist and a travel writer. Her last novel, Astonish Me, I absolutely loved. This novel is about an orphan named Marion who is rescued from a sinking ocean liner in 1914. She goes on to be obsessed with flight and to circumnavigate the globe on her own. And then the novel jumps forward a century later when a movie is being made about her, and the woman cast as her starts to become obsessed with her, and their fates collide. The book is said to be meticulously researched and beautifully written.
Hi everyone!
Hi!
So we are here to share some of our 21 books for 2021. And my first book on the list, I'm very, very excited to talk about, is a new book coming out this May by one of my favorite authors. He was the author of The Martian, which was a best-selling hit science fiction novel. This is his newest title, Project Hail Mary. It's an interstellar science thriller. It's about an astronaut who wakes up alone on the ship and realizes that he's all that's left of his crew, and he has this mysterious mission in which he's supposed to save the Earth and all of humanity. It is already getting some wonderful reviews. As someone who loved The Martian, and I love science fiction in general, this is something that I just can't wait to read. It comes out a day before my birthday, so That's going to be
an early birthday present for Molly.
Early birthday present, but he is one of those authors who, even if you're not a big science fiction fan, could appeal. His writing is just incredible, and being more of a science thriller. If you're a fan of Michael Crichton or Lincoln Rhyme, he may be a good author to check out if you want to try something new. So that is Andy Weir, Project Hail Mary.
My first one is Harlem Shuffle by Colson Whitehead. It's a glorious, entertaining novel of heists, shakedowns, and ripoffs set in Harlem in the 1960s. It's a part family saga, but I think it's disguised in a crime novel. It says it's an energizing historical read full of memorable characters and settings. So I am so looking forward to getting my hands on this book. I will be the first one to put my name on it, and I don't know if there are any good reviews yet on it, but from Colson Whitehead, anything is going to be positive. So
one of those authors who's worth it to read no matter what the story is, because his writing is just so beautiful.
Okay.
Good pick. All right. My next pick is one of my favorite genres that is kind of alternative fairy tales with a twist. This is a modern retelling of Cinderella, The Charmed Wife by Olga Grushin. And in this story, it's been about 13 years since Happily Ever After, and Cinderella's kind of had it. Things are not going well in the palace, things are not going well with Prince Charming, so she decides to escape from the palace and finds herself a witch, and she has a rather unusual request. She wants Prince Charming dead. So,
is this a first novel?
This is a first novel. This is a debut. So something a little bit different, a new genre to explore, a very different take on the classic Cinderella story, and looking at the reality of modern marriages. So I'm pretty excited about this one. It sounded very entertaining, a little bit of darkness to it. So that's The Charmed Wife.
Okay, my next one is Dark Horses, and this one we won't have to wait quite as long. It's coming out in February. It's also a debut novel. It's a darkly gripping coming-of-age novel about a teenage girl and her struggle to reclaim her life from an abusive father. Sounds excellent, right? It's a survivor story. It's about resilience and female strength. It's so far gotten starred reviews from every single place that has reviewed it. Booklist, Kirkus, Publishers Weekly, Oprah, Library Journal, you name it. It's a psychological thriller, as I said, pulse pounding, page turning. What more could you ask for?
Excellent. One of the most popular genres, I think, is that psychological fiction. All right, next on my list is Infinite Country. So this is an illuminating literary novel that offers an intimate perspective on deportation, family, and refugees. Talia is a young woman who is being held at a correctional facility in the mountains of Colombia after allegedly committing a crime. The only thing that's on her mind is getting out of the camp and reuniting with her father, who has a plane ticket to the United States where they'll finally be able to meet up with her mother and the rest of her family for the first time in years. It jumps back and forth between the young girl's story and then also the love story that began their entire family, and really looks at the perspectives of being a mixed country family and dealing with the issues of deportation, illegal immigration, and the consequences of hard choices. So that is Infinite Country by Patricia Engel.
Doesn't sound easy, but sounds like a good read.
No, but if you're looking for something to really sink your teeth into, I am very, very excited about this one.
Okay, what else you got?
And my final one, we're jumping in a little bit of the psychological fiction type story. This is The Project by Courtney Summers. It's dark, twisty, great for a winter's day. It is the chilling story of an inspiring young journalist who is tasked with uncovering the mysteries behind this cult that is just taking upstate New York by storm. They're charitable, they're charismatic, but they definitely harbor some dark secrets. She knows this because her sister is a member of the cult, and she's been trying for years to get her sister out. She's approached by a man who claims that his son was killed by members of the cult, and she takes it upon herself to
kind of take a journalist investigative perspective and unravel what is really going on.
Sounds good. Yeah. Well,
And that one comes out in February, so that'll be a perfect winter read.
So this book that's coming out this spring, This Close to Okay by Lisa Cross Smith, really sounds like a page turner. Basically, it's about a recently divorced therapist, and her name is Tally Clark, and she's on her way home to basically she sees this guy on the cliff, and she jumps out trying to save him in a way and just asks him, does he want a cup of coffee? And he eventually says yes and goes back to her, and they start having this magical connection, and it really just shines a light on how magical it can be to have that relationship, and it really shows hope as well. Every Last Fear by Alex Finley. This book is also coming out in the spring, and it sounds like a page turner as well. It is a psychological thriller, and unfortunately a whole family dies, and there's only one surviving son who has to find the truth of what happened in those final days. And this book will move you to tears, and it will keep you on the edge of your seat. A Bright Ray of Darkness by Ethan Hawke. This is one of his first novels in nearly 20 years, so definitely a must read. And this one is about a young man. He is, basically tormented by himself, having such heartbreak and going from love to art to everything else, and divorce, and having that rage and sex kind of moment to try to make up for it. And so anyway, it's really about fatherhood and his whole life, this narrator's whole life, and how theater saves him and art saves him. So definitely come pick this one up. Every Vow You Break by Peter Swanson, also coming out in the spring. And this one is basically about a bride who unfortunately has a one-night stand at her bachelorette party, and then decides to still go through the marrying this millionaire that she has met. And at the honeymoon, the one-night stand becomes kind of a stalker and magically appears. And unfortunately, she has to deal with him by basically telling her husband and possibly ruining their marriage, or dealing with it herself. So it's definitely a psychological thriller, and you'll have to read to find out.